Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Let's face it, the future is now. We're living in a connected cyber society, and we need to stop ignoring it or pretending that it's not affecting us. Join us as we explore how humanity arrived at this current state of digital reality and what it means to live amongst so much technology and data. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high-net-worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
All right, hello everybody. This is Redefining Society, one of the channels that we have on ITSP Magazine. We look, as you know, at the technology, at the society, at the cybersecurity, and sometimes it's the two of the topics, sometimes it's more specific at the intersection of one in particular. And today I would say it is technology and society, because it touches what is the future of our society, which is the next generations, the young generation. And it's always complicated, and maybe we don't think enough about it when we invent technology, we push technology. But thankfully, there are people that do that. That's their job. And one of this person is actually my guest today, Dr. Sonia Livingston. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Marco.
Yeah, and it's great to see you again. And it was almost a year ago at the day today that we had a conversation. And that one was about parenting for a digital future. And it was a book that you wrote, if I remember well. And we were talking about how the parents may not be educated enough to then educate the kids. So that was that conversation. And today we're going to go deeper into a topic that is still part of that conversation, but maybe even more relevant, at least in my opinion. And I know that that's what you've been following lately. So let's start with a little bit about you so that people know who you are. And if they want, of course, they can go back on the podcast and listen to our prior conversation as well.
Sure. I began life as a social psychologist, and I got into researching children and young people's lives and experiences in relation to new media, digital technologies, the internet, call it what you will, quite a long time ago. And I've been kind of following how the digital world has changed and evolved around young people. So I come at this as a researcher, kind of always thinking about the experience of young people, but kind of interested in how this informs debates also about regulation and parental advice, and how young people should be educated around the digital world too.
And that's not an easy task. That's for sure. I feel like when we talk about society and we talk about legislation, it seems like society moves a little bit faster than the rhythm that legislator can keep up with, and And technology lately has been growing
Technology really
way too much.
even faster, absolutely. And regulation, you can see that regulators are trying, educators are trying, parents are trying, but young people are often kind of in the vanguard. They're exploring the interesting and sometimes difficult spaces of the digital world faster and kind of more experimental and creative ways. So I think just from my point of view, just keeping up with where young people are going and what they're doing online is an interesting kind of research task. But then I'm increasingly committed to trying to kind of bring their voices and their experiences back into those wider debates, so that as we think about society, we kind of recognize that young people are often in a very different and sometimes very difficult place in relation to technology.
Yeah, and just to connect to the topic of today's conversation, the way I see this is, again, I repeat that the technology is growing so much faster. If I think back on my days, technology was a new stereo system, the TV, and everything. Well, maybe not the stereo, but the TV was something like parents were like, kids shouldn't stay too much in front of the TV. It's not good. And then gaming, and then the internet come up, and the whole, let's call it Pandora's box, because how do you even define what the internet is? And social media probably amplified all of that. And so what you were talking last time, what just to recap, what are the tools that parents can use, and where can they focus? I mean, is it like know the right answer for controlling and helping kids to get the knowledge of how to use the internet?
Well, what we found in Parenting for a Digital Future was an incredible diverse range of ways in which parents are responding, and some, kind of really trying to sort of geek out with their kids and be in the vanguard with them, so they would understand the challenges and encourage them to, become kind of the digital citizens that maybe is needed in that unknown future. And others, you could see a kind of hanging back and trying to kind of hang on to in-person experiences and, real life, physical embodied engagement with the world. And most parents, somewhere in between, trying to kind of achieve this magical balancing act between kind of embracing change and holding on to traditional things that they've always valued. And within that diversity of parents and young people's experiences, some were really struggling, and some are facing some, forms of disadvantage or vulnerability that made their online experiences particularly intense. And so in the new work, since the book, I've been trying to kind of understand better who are the young people who are particularly vulnerable, and what does the internet look like to them? Because the internet is not the same thing for everyone. It's and if if you are very anxious or depressed or lonely, or you've got a kind of diagnosable problem, it can become a very different kind of place. Sometimes positive, but in lots of ways negative.
Yeah, I'm glad that you just went straight into today's topic, and I mean, just keep going. I mean, if somebody doesn't know anything about it, maybe because they're not facing this reality, and I like how you frame the conversation between, I call it the blurry thin line between real life and virtual life, and maybe we'll touch to that in the end with the metaverse as well. But let's focus on this. So if people don't know, they're not in that situation, what is important, the most important things to understand about people, adolescents and kids with the mental health vulnerabilities, that it makes the internet even more a dangerous place to be?
Yeah, I would say, Marco, that there are kind of two ways of coming at young people's experience that are really, really crucial. So one is, in a way, as we've always known, their offline, their regular lives matter. and are the biggest influence. So if young people are feeling intense academic pressure, or they have body image issues, or their parents or their family life is chaotic or difficult, or throwing up, all kinds of problems for them, or they're struggling with discrimination or poverty. What we said in Parenting for Digital Future was all those offline problems kind of shape how you engage with the internet, and what you look for in it, and where you go when you go online, or what problems you might be trying to solve. So for young people who do find themselves living with life's difficulties, their approach to the internet is from a different mindset from those of, your kind of happy, well-balanced, well-supported children. And it means they search in different ways. They find support from different places. So what their online world looks like could be very different. And I think those who don't recognize this tend to assume everyone turns on their smartphone and sees the same kinds of things, the same kinds of invitations, or the same kinds of images, and they don't. So young people have been telling me that they might they might go to Instagram or TikTok, and they are just flooded with images of self-harm, or depressing images, or invitations to kind of join with others who are really suffering and unhappy. And sometimes, those can be quite unnerving and bizarre places in various ways. And so there, they turn on their phone, and the invitations, the offering varies according to how they've used it before, according to what they might have looked for, but also, and this is the kind of second thing to think about, in addition to where they're coming from in their lives, there's what does the social media platform, or the gaming platform, or the kind of online world offer to them. And that's a matter increasingly of kind of algorithmic processes that are trying to grab our attention. We all understand, I think, a bit about the attention economy now, but trying to kind of offer a more absorbing and attention-grabbing experience. So if you bring those two things together, you can find young people really kind of going down a rabbit hole of feeling depressed, looking for something that might express their mood, or kind of capture how they're feeling, and then they're offered a whole lot more and more extreme, and kind of taken very quickly down a rabbit hole that can move them from unhappy to desperate, or from thinking about self-harm to being triggered into self-harm, or so it's that kind of double action. There's things going wrong in some young people's lives, and there's the way in which the kind of attention-grabbing algorithms of the online world kind of takes them and leads them in particular directions. So it's very much a kind of pathway that goes, that is online and offline together. It is that thin, blurry line. But it does mean that some young people are in a very different place to others.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about the many conversation we have about the echo chamber, the bubble of information, and we have seen that with a lot of situation, even like voting and information manipulation and reinforcing the lie, the fake news, or whatever it is. So that algorithm that you're talking about, it's obviously affecting everyone. And are companies starting to do something about it, or is just we don't care, we're making money, and it's all game, or we cannot tell if somebody is more prone to receiving the message in a certain way or in another? Who is doing something about it?
I mean, in doing our recent research, we did interview people from a number of the main companies, as well as some of those kind of responsible, working with the big children's charities and regulators. I think there's absolutely no question not enough is being done, and there's no question that in the big platforms, we know who they are, that the vast majority of the effort is going on making the platforms more profitable, wider reach, more gathering more attention, and so on. Of course, there are they are increasingly appointing people who do have young people's well-being in mind as their job description, as part of their responsibility. So I think there's increasingly a kind of a debate within some of the big companies about how to look out for young people's well-being without, well, that's always the question, can it be done without cost? No, it can't. Can it be done without kind of reining in the voracious business model? No, it can't. So, there is a real fight, I think, going on within some of the companies where young people's well-being is up against the profit motive in a really obvious way. I have a bit of sympathy for the companies, in the sense I think it is quite hard when you have a young person, you have young people mixing in with everyone else in your game or on your social media platform. They have said to me they don't know how to tell, is this a young person who is playfully acting up or desperately acting out? Is this a person who's venting because it seems like a fun, anonymous space where you can say anything and they'll explore the possibilities? Or is that a young person venting because they are actually kind of desperate and don't have, a kind of other ways to kind of deal with their unhappiness? So I can see that it is difficult, but on the other hand, I'm underwhelmed, shall we say, at the efforts that have been made so far. And I think for many parents and educators, kind of, knowing that young people are being taken into this kind of, this space that is not designed with their well-being in mind, it is really scary, because they're taken on these very personalized pathways that it's just very hard for any observing, caring adult to kind of get a grip on and respond. So I think it's difficult for the companies, but on the other hand, they have surmounted many amazing difficulties to rule the world and grab all of our attention. And I think there is a whole lot more that they could be doing.
Now, let me ask you this. Let's assume that artificial intelligence is going to help to detect all of these, and who knows, probably. I believe it will in a certain way, even if I wouldn't trust it with my deciding for my life, that's for sure. But at least, alert something that is maybe going on, and there is not many false positive, right? Mm. But even if that is the case, is blocking, creating barriers, funneling into an internet, a walled garden, going to help, or is going to make things worse, because it's just creating another fictional world for it's not, when you see, like, there is the Disney website community just for kids, right? And all the content there, like, would that be the answer to create an internet that is?
No. I mean, I think for younger children, so there's an issue about younger children being kind of drawn into spaces for older people than adults. I think many would say that, we need to build more positive spaces for young children that are fun, that aren't all about, other kinds of monetizing of their attention through advertising and so on. But, so let's design positive kind of play spaces for children. This is what we've been arguing in our Playful by Design work, that for younger ones, there have to be spaces to play online, just like offline, without them being taken on these kind of profitable pathways into risky spaces. But for adolescents, for teenagers, they desperately want to be in real places. They want to be with other people. They don't want to be put in a walled garden that's just for little kids. I wonder if there's a way of aligning what they want actually with what a lot of other adults want. I think a lot of adults we're hearing also don't want to have their spaces kind of ruined by expressions of racism and misogyny and violence and pornography. There can be places, if I don't want to come over like a kind of, really censorious person, but I think we can have a sense of what are public spaces, common spaces where kind of rules of civility apply, and then niche spaces, specialized spaces, okay, where, we don't want censorship, but we don't want to make it so easy for young people to go there. And we definitely don't want an algorithm that draws them there and kind of pushes them always towards more and more extreme content. So I think there are issues around what is said and what images are shown, which is where a lot of the kind of worries about free speech really concentrate. And I would be with young people in not wanting an overprotected world. They don't want that, and I don't want that. But the push towards the more extreme places isn't coming out of kind of democratic openness or free speech motivation. It's coming out of, monetizing eyeballs, grabbing attention. And in that sense, I think I have a lot of sympathy with the efforts now to think how to regulate algorithms for other purposes and with other motivations than just maintain, maximize attention in the most extreme way possible.
Yeah, I think there should be a new social contract. I've been talking about that for a long time, where and some companies now are going there where we can make money and we can do good, and I appreciate that because money drives decision. But if you don't have to always close your eyes and go straight for the throat, right? Yeah. Are there some positive aspect of the internet, of social media that actually can help adolescents with mental health vulnerabilities? So is it all negative, or do we have some silver lining?
Yeah, I think there are absolutely positives, and in a way, we began this research thinking about trying to understand what young people are learning as they are in these environments and how they might be learning to protect themselves or to cope or to understand kind of more about the wide world and what it involves. So yeah, young people are full of and kind of proud of, the ways they're learning, figuring out how to cope. There's a lot of talk about gaming the algorithm so that it shows you, kittens and flowers instead of doom and gloom and how to hurt yourself, which young people are kind of coming to and sharing tips on, not to live in a kind of saccharine, naive world, but to recognize where they have some agency and where they can kind of manage what's offered to them and what pathways are open to them. So I think they're learning a lot. Yes, they're learning a lot more about what goes wrong in the world and the problems of the world than perhaps I knew at their age. But they are, in lots of ways, kind of, quite kind of savvy and coping. And even, the young people I've been interviewing who are maybe in contact with clinical services, who have very kind of serious vulnerabilities. I mean, that sense of their agency, that they can learn, they can cope, they can, whether it's they take their digital detox or they learn how to kind of manage their feed, or they know when to call for help from a friend, whether online or offline, or when to tell a parent. So there are really vulnerable moments when they don't have the resources to kind of cope as they would hope. So they're definitely vulnerable, but they are also learning strategies, and some of those are online. And I think it's fascinating how a lot of the kind of the help services and the clinical services now are also, as it were, setting up shop online so that they can be there just in time and in the right place to be reached, perhaps in a confidential, privacy preserving way that allows a young person to get help without whatever chaos might be at home kind of, noticing and interfering. So online can be a very private and anonymous space that young people really find help from sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I have some friends that are psychiatric doctors, and we were talking about how even the 2 years of pandemic have changed things, like where their practice would just have to be in person, and people wouldn't trust to be doing this on a Zoom call for privacy issue. And then they realized that that was actually a good thing, because you could get help right there when you need it. So, I love the fact that you're shining the light on the good things about this. And you said that we talked about the company, the algorithm, the users, the adolescents and kids themselves. They can start maybe to recognize this thing, but what's the role of the parents in this? I mean, should this address also the parents more in educating them? And I'm kind of connecting with your other book that we talk about, because I feel like if you're facing even a higher risk, maybe you need to be even more prepared. And how do you do that as a parent?
It's difficult. And it's difficult for several reasons. One, I think many parents don't really know what mental health difficulties look like. So we kind of hear that they don't recognize the signs, and that might lead them to worry over much about a child who is kind of staring at their smartphone a lot of the time and not saying very much, because we know adolescents are kind of moody and don't, reveal everything to their parents anyway. So there is a challenge in identifying the signs of a child who is kind of being taken down that rabbit hole. And I think it would be great if the clinicians and the therapists kind of came forward and talked more. What does it look like, a child who maybe is anxious or depressed or self-harming? What signs should parents look out for? And then kind of connect that to some of the ways in which those experiences can be made worse online. So what does it look like on TikTok? What are the signs? What are the so parents could get a bit more support themselves. But I think, I guess the only other thing parents can really do, and they should receive a lot more support themselves. But the only thing they can do is try to avoid as much as possible being so anxious or worried that they kind of over monitor their child and create generate the circumstances in which children kind of want to hide away or not tell, especially if they fear their parents are going to take away the phone or ban them from the whole kind of digital world, which basically, cuts them off from their friends, cuts them off from their peer group, makes them feel like they are excluded. So it is just super difficult. You have to keep talking to your teen. That's the oldest advice, and it is still the best, without in as non-judgmental a way as possible. And maybe to be curious, invite them to explain to you. So what's this TikTok thing? How does it work? What do you see? Tell me about it, because kids are proud of their knowledge and they do love to explain.
I love that because most of the time, a lot of parents will be like, "Oh, my kids, they know technology way better than me, and I don't understand this," and they just shy away from it. And I love the idea of, why don't you explain it to me? And you can kind of get the way they see things too. So that's interesting. Now let's complicate things a little bit more, if possible, with the few minutes that we have left. And virtual reality and the metaverse. We kind of joked before start recording about this, but we have many conversation already on something that we don't even really exactly know what it is. Everybody has his own version of the metaverse, but the bottom line is that you immerse yourself in a world that is gaming, but is also education, exploring. There are many applications of virtual reality that help training and resolving fears or mental issues, or recovering after an event or something like that. So I try to pinpoint to the good side of things, but there is also the other side where now you're wearing goggles, you're in a different world. How that affects somebody that, I mean, it's already affecting everybody in a different way because you're kind of there. I mean, there is a professor that wrote a book, it's called Reality Plus, where it just clearly is a philosopher. He says, well, it's not another reality. If you can feel it somehow, it's reality for you. So how this is amplified or affect even more adolescent with vulnerabilities?
We don't know. I mean, that's the thing. We really,
and we're done with the podcast.
We don't. What do we know? We know that tech always gets out there to the users before it's thought about these problems.
And
problem. That it is a problem. So we have got to find a way, whether that's regulation, but society's got to find a way to require the innovators to think about children's needs, children's well-being, children's rights before the tech is out there. We're already hearing stories about young people being approached by predators, by pedophiles, being groomed in virtual reality. It's not a surprise. It's happened in every game space, especially every kind of multiplayer world that we've built so far. And eventually, belatedly, the providers recognize they have to spend real money on moderation and kind of building in safety by design principles. So this has got to happen before we hit the headlines with children being harmed. We know that kids are going to love this metaverse when it comes because they are going to explore. They're going to think it's theirs, and they tell us in the work we've been doing on Playful by Design that they want embodied experiences. They want whole world experiences. They want places where they can, dress up their avatar and kind of, feel that they're there with their peers and that they've invested in their online persona and built a world together. And the more creative and the more open-ended, the more they love that. So we can, it is like, what kids want, walking, kind of rushing into a future with a lot of risks in plain sight and not being dealt with. So I think this is the point where regulation has got to step in. I think of it like, we want the kids to have the healthy food to eat, but we have to regulate the food before it hits the supermarket. We don't allow all kinds of, poisonous to get out there. So somehow that's what's got to happen, because the kids are going to be there first and they're going to explore, and they should explore. It's their digital world, but not with known hazards sitting in plain sight.
I notice a common thread in many of your answers, which they go into, if we do a better world in the internet and social media or in virtual reality gaming for everyone, then we also take care of many of the problems that we don't have to just resolve for one age group or a social demographic. Or, I mean, it's very idealistic, but I love that. Meaning, why don't we start with ethics and then we create the technology on top of that, which little...
Well, I think this is a real philosophical struggle, because I see how a kind of, the liberal view that everyone is free, they should be able to do what they want, say what they want, not be constrained. I completely, that is fundamental to our sense of agency and our kind of, modern civilization, if you like. But at the same time, I feel like I go into discussions with you or in regulation spaces, and I advocate for what kids need, and someone else is advocating for to stop the misogyny against women, and someone else is advocating about racism and dealing with the racial discrimination, and those people concerned with the people with disabilities are advocating, and actually we're all saying the same thing. And add up all those groups and it is the majority. So there has to be some way of and we do this in our towns all the time. I might have said this before, but when we design a town, we design a space that does have some adjustment for people with disabilities and does have ways for children to kind of be on the streets and without being run over. And we don't regard that as a constraint. We regard that as a civilized space for everyone, a kind of common space. And that's what we don't have online, because everything is speech, and speech is sacrosanct. And it's a philosophical conundrum. But
it's like the paradox of tolerance, right? The Karl Popper one. It's it's like freedom. At a certain point, it has to stop. Otherwise, we all go back into the wild.
Yes, and I'm a fan of Isaiah Berlin, so I like not only the negative freedoms, but the positive freedoms.
Yes.
How do we build for people positively? Because for everyone who is expressing their, hostile and problematic views, the chilling effect on so many others doesn't get counted, doesn't get put into the equation. And we have to think how to enable those, that is enabling positive freedoms.
Beautiful. Well, Sonia, I'm going to leave you a minute to maybe point if there are some resources or people wants to learn more about this. And of course, we will add it to the notes in the podcast as well, so people can click and go to these links. I'm sure that hopefully a lot of people by now will want to know a little bit more about this. So if you... Is there any place? Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, I put all my work on my website at work, but it's quick to get there from sonialivingstone.net. And a lot of the work I'm doing around play and child rights, I'm doing with the Digital Futures Commission, which is digitalfuturescommission.org.uk. And or follow me on Twitter at Livingstone_S.
All right. And again, people, you don't have to remember that. You can click on it.
Right. And I blog way too much. So you kind of...
But there are places online, again, in the internet. And Sonia, I thank you so much. It's, of course, a topic that we cannot exhaust. And it's probably always going to be relevant, because I'm sure in 10 years from now, there's going to be something else. And it's going to affect the way we live, and that's why this channel is called Redefining Society, because it's a constant, right? Change is the only constant. So Sonia, thank you very much, and I hope to have you back on the show sometimes again, maybe not in a year earlier, but the year chat, it works for me. I love it.
Goes. Yeah, it's fun to talk to you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.